Hello, friends. How are you today? So, Liberated Success, we just concluded our webinar series, which is New York City Civil Service 101. We had two webinars, one last week and one this week, that was presented by our friends at DCAS. And Sue and Stacy, they were outstanding. So, thank you so much for bringing this information to the Liberated Success community. Now, folks, you know I love career storytelling, and I forgot to press record on the intro. So this is why I'm taping the intro, but I taped the panel discussion, and I wanted to share that with you today. So let me introduce the panel and the first question. So we have Natasha Ward. She's a director with New York City Human Resources Administration. And what is bringing Natasha joy during this time is that although many have experienced adverse effects because of COVID, she is still gainfully employed and working from the comforts of her home. We have Aisha Johnson. She is the PIC Job Selection Programs Dispatcher with New York City Transit, the MTA. And what is bringing Aisha joy is working in a job that she feels is well suited for her experience and her personality. And then we have Nigel Paul. He is a lieutenant of police with NYPD. And what is bringing Nigel joy is being healthy and progressive. So welcome our panelists. So the first question is, what was your entry point into New York City civil service or your government role? And now we'll jump into the conversation.
Stacy discussed earlier where there was a job fair in college. I was just coming out of college, and there was a job fair that came up, and the New York City Human Resources was one of the agencies that was there. I filled out the application, and about 3 or 4 months later, after filling out the application, I was called and asked if I wanted or was still interested in working with the New York City Human Resources Department. So at that time, I was like, sure. So that's actually where I began my career. That's where I began my career with the New York City Human Resources as a provisional employee.
And then we'll kick it over to Aisha, ladies first. And then Nigel. Same question. What was your entry point into New York, into civil service?
You guys. I took the civil service exam for conductor back in 2008. At the time, I actually had a full-time job working at ABC Television. I got my degree from Hofstra University in broadcast journalism, so I was working in my field. And the test came up. I had no intentions of taking it, but my stepfather encouraged me to take it, and he actually paid for me to take it. It's like, okay, I don't have anything else to do. So I took the see how well I could do. I think I scored somewhere in the 90s. And in 2010, I actually got laid off from my job at ABC. And in 2011, I got the letter from New York City Transit saying that they had reached my list number, which is the number you get after you take the exam. When they score it, you get a list number. They got to my list number in August of 2011, and I was hired in November. And so I started my career with Transit as a conductor in November 2011. I was a conductor for 3.5 years. And then I took an exam while I was a conductor for the position of tower operator. Tower operator is essentially kind of map trains. They send trains where they need to go, basically. So I took the exam for tower operator in 2012, I believe, and became a tower operator in 2014. And then I took the dispatcher exam in 2017 and became a dispatcher in January of 2019. So that's my current title. And as a dispatcher, we're able to put in resumes for other positions. And that's how I got the position that I have now, working in the job selections department.
Nice. Thank you, Aisha. And Nigel.
Yes.
What was your entry point into New York City civil service?
I'd like to say I think the college I went to had a lot to do with it, along with different life experiences. But always had a respect for the police department. And around 1998, I was going to John Jay College. I don't know if anybody's familiar or whatever. So while at John Jay College, I had conversations that just encouraged me to at least take the test. You know, initially I was like, yeah, I don't know, but decided to take the test, and they just called it at the right time. And it's just been just test taken from there. I took my sergeant's test back in 2009 and got promoted in 2011 to sergeant. And in 2011, I took my lieutenant's test, and in 2015, I got promoted to lieutenant. So it's a good move.
So everyone took exams to get their civil service position. So that is awesome, because it's so good to be able to put into real practice what Stacy and Sue was sharing in their presentation. So my second question was, how have you been able to move up your career ladder with government, and how many different civil service titles have you had, and then what has been your motivation to move up? So Nigel, we'll start with you, and then Natasha, and then Aisha.
Okay, so when I took my first civil service exam for sergeant, I had already had about 10 years on, 10 years, you know, in service with the NYPD as a police officer. I felt like I needed a new challenge. I needed to see new things. So for us, promotion is one way to kind of like move around and get to different areas of the job. So that's why I took the test in 2009. And then I got promoted, like I said, 2 years later in 2011. And, you know, just the journey to get there was inspiring enough to just make me want to, you know, go up another notch to lieutenant.
And that's where you are now, lieutenant.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Natasha?
No problem.
Natasha? Same question. How have you been able to move up the career ladder?
Sorry. You know, that's Wi-Fi.
How have you been able to move up? How many titles have you had?
Okay, so I've had, like I said, when I started your first question, when I came into the city, I came in as provisional. And when I came in as provisional, it was not my intention to stay within that city agency, in that particular city agency. However, based upon other things that I had going on personally, I decided that while I was there, I would at least try to make it the best thing for me in the interim. So my first test I took, and I became a civil servant in 2000. And at that time, I was an investigator. I was a fraud investigator. And from there, again, because I was still really not planning on staying with the agency, I was just like, whatever. But as the test came out, and just like Stacy and Sue discussed, every time you see something come out, it was always an opportunity to further yourself. And because of that, I took the test. So again, after becoming an investigator, I took a test. I became a supervisor. After taking the test and becoming a supervisor, I then took another test. I became an assistant director. And after that, I took another test and I became a manager. And so even though it definitely was not the place that I thought I would end up being, I've actually been in this position or at this agency for 21 years. And so just like they say in their presentation, you definitely should try your best, take as many exams as possible. And there are definitely other agencies that you can move around and become a part of if you're not exactly happy with the agency that you're working in. There's plenty of opportunities. You just have to make sure that you put yourself in a position to seek the opportunities and always be prepared. So that's what I've done as far as my city career.
Thank you. And Aisha?
Okay, I think I might have jumped the gun a little. I think I kind of answered this, but
That's all right. Tell us again.
okay. So like I said, I started as a conductor in 2011, and you know, it was a good job, but I always kind of knew that I wanted to see what other opportunities were there, and I felt like remaining a conductor, you know, if I was going to spend a whole 25 years and it was a career with New York City Transit, that I should explore what other options there were. And the best advice I got as a new conductor was to move up and move often, which basically meant that every time an exam came up that you should take it. And so, you know, I kind of waited. I knew that as a conductor, the only two options I had as far as exams were either to become a tower operator or a train operator. So I would have taken whichever exam came first. It just so happened that tower operator came first. I have to say I was much better equipped to be a tower operator than I ever would have been to be a train operator. I think there's a certain, I don't know, je ne sais quoi, if you will, that a train operator has, that they're fearless. And I don't necessarily have that quality. I would have taken the exam. I would have given it my best shot. But I knew that the tower operator was definitely a better fit for me. So I went to towers, and then as a tower operator, you could become a dispatcher. So when that exam came up, I took that exam, and I knew that as a dispatcher, I would have opportunities to move around the agency, but still hold on to my civil service title, which is something that was really important to me. Because as I forgot the woman who was speaking earlier said, when you take the exam, you have a little more job security than you do if you come from outside, just, you know, on a resume. So I still, even though I work in an office and I had to get my job with my resume, I still have my civil service protection as a dispatcher. So if something ever happens to my current position, I can always go back to the field and work as a dispatcher. So I hope I answered all of the questions.
No, you did. And you actually led us into our next question, which is there any advice? Is there, you know, a life hack, a tidbit, something that you wish someone told you when you were going through this process that you want to share with our community? So Aisha, I'll let you start, and then Natasha, and then Nigel.
I guess for me, just decide what your path is and, you know, hold steadfast to it. I knew when I started as a conductor that I wanted to move up as much as I could, you know, just to see what opportunities were there. And to be quite honest, also to make more money. I wanted to make the most money I could, working the least amount of hours I could. And in order to do that, you had to move up. So know what your goal is and remain steadfast.
Thank you. Natasha, same question. Is there a piece of advice or something that you wish someone told you that you want to tell our community in terms of how to navigate working in the city, working in civil service, moving up the ladder?
Well, I would definitely agree with what Aisha said about knowing exactly what it is that you want. Definitely always put your best foot forward and be prepared. Research, look into things. There are plenty city agencies, so there's so many things out there that you can definitely get involved in. You can be an accountant, you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer working for the city. And the biggest thing is the fact that the civil servant, you know, the statutes that cover the civil servant, it gives you so much more protection as opposed to working in corporate America. You know, you have more securities and benefits, and you still have a whole lot of opportunities that's available to you. So you could be in one agency today and you can transfer and go to another agency and start a whole new path, maybe something that you love more than what you were actually currently doing. I would also recommend and suggest that if you happen to come into the city as a provisional employee, no one told me when I first came in that you should join the pension. Even if you decide that, you know, later on, because like for myself, it really wasn't something that I was planning to stay and be a part of. But if you have the opportunity, join the pension, because You know, some people, they just don't tell you certain things from the beginning and you learn later. Then you have to buy back your time. You have to do a lot of different things that if you do it from the beginning, you won't have to deal with all of these additional, you know, things later on. And outside of that, I would just say definitely, you know, go on DCAS, look at the job opportunities, make sure, of course, that the things that are listed in the job opportunities are things that you're interested in, and keep pushing yourself. Never give up. The sky is the limit.
Thank you. And Nigel, same question. Is there a piece of advice that you want to give us? Is there something that someone, you know, told you, or something that you figured out that you want to share with our community, and how to navigate civil service?
Well, it's a little different. I would say, one, pray about everything, or invest some time in visualization. That's something I really believe in. Like, if you can't see it in your mind, you're not going to be able to see it in fact. Number two, get a mentor. Getting a mentor is super important. No one knows how to get there better than someone who's already there. I know, like in my experience, like I made a few mistakes that probably, if I got a mentor earlier, I wouldn't have made those mistakes. Okay. Three, know what you're doing when you do it, not afterwards. That's kind of like part of getting a mentor, but just fundamentally, like life-wise, I would say that's a good advice. Don't do it and then ponder it, right? Kind of understand what you're doing before you do it. Whether it's application or fulfilling your job duties. When you're on your job, you should know your job. All too often as a supervisor, I have to deal with people who don't know what they are doing. Invest time in getting good at it and understanding what you're doing, looking meaningful and mindful, and people will take notice of that. Having a mentor will just help you guide you and get there faster. And like I said, praying about everything just adds that special touch to it, that synergy that's really needed nowadays. Money-wise, I'd like to recommend that everyone participate heavily in their investment program, especially if they have access. Like if you're a city worker, you have access to the 457, the 401. I don't mind putting it out there. I tell everyone I invest as much as possible. And just to let you know how much, I'm about 70% of my income goes in there. Okay. I could stop working today. I'm fine. So I'd like to see everybody there.
That was perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. So Aisha, Nigel, and Natasha, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. And thank you so much, Natasha, Aisha, and Nigel. So takeaways: know yourself. Knowing what you are interested in, knowing your passion is going to help you, and it's going to guide you in if you should take more tests so that you can move up, right? 2, once you get a job with the city, whether you are provisional or permanent, and especially if you're provisional, you need to start contributing to your pension plan, right? Because you want to start saving for your future self. I mean, Nigel said he contributes 70% of his income. Wow. He said he could stop working. And he looked pretty young. So I'm just saying. And 3, you can't see it in your mind, then you can't see it as a fact. Visualization. We have to visualize what we want to create. I visualized Liberated Success. It wasn't called Liberated Success, but I visualized this 8 years ago. And here I am today doing what I saw in my mind and manifesting it. And that's so powerful. We have to conceptualize it and see it, and then we can act on it. So thank you so much. I'm so proud of our first webinar series, and I want to invite you to come back next week, because November we are going to start talking about college, and we are going to do the financial aid process. We're going to have a webinar on financial aid, And we're going to have a webinar on the college application process. So long for now. And thank you. And don't forget to vote. Early voting. I voted early already. I'm so excited. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I did my part, and now you need to do your part. Okay, see you next time.